Amethyst Virgo. I'm here to talk about I think it's an exciting topic, but I want to talk about to really truly be invested in astrology and to really understand it. How much do we actually know about the planets? We talk so much about the signs. We know our signs. We like this sign. We don't like this sign. Which sign is the best for us, right? We do all of those things, but we can't actually fully understand astrology without understanding the planets and what they do. And so if we only get caught up in the sign, we lose a very integral part of this process, which is understanding the planetary energy. And here's why. So yes, we can understand all we want what it means to have Jupiter in Virgo, right? But guess what? Jupiter also is going to transit other signs. It's great if someone is like, well, I'm a Gemini, right? But remember, Mercury is going to transit different signs. And so if we understand the symbolism of each planet, no matter where it is in your chart, someone's chart, in a transit chart, we're going to understand the core energy of that planet because the planets are in all the signs, right? The planets transit all the signs. People are born into, right, all these different planets in different signs. So it's not just about knowing the sign. We have to also understand the planet. What is each planet? I'm going to start with Mercury and Jupiter. Now, I've always found these two planets very fascinating. I guess you can say I'm starting maybe because Mercury rules my rising and my sun sign, and Jupiter rules over my moon sign. But I really think the dynamic between these planets is important. So I know I told you earlier that I want to talk about the planets, big picture, not just the signs, but let me start a little bit and talk about the signs. Mercury rules over what? Mercury rules over Gemini and Virgo. Jupiter rules over Sagittarius. Jupiter is the original ruler of Pisces. Virgo and Pisces are opposite signs, right? Gemini and Sagittarius are opposite signs. Do you see what's going on here? So Gemini opposes Sagittarius. You have objectivity, you have information, and then you have subjectivity and beliefs. You need both, but they're different ends of the spectrum. But then Virgo squares Sagittarius. What do we know about those signs? Virgo is the details. Virgo is the smaller picture, the little things we could miss. Sagittarius is the big picture. It is the message. Virgo saying, "Well, let's fix this." Sag is saying, "Let's go forward with what we believe." Very different energies, but needed nonetheless. Now let's go. If we want to go old school, traditionally, right? Jupiter. I do wholeheartedly use Neptune as the ruler of Pisces. It makes sense to me. A lot of modern astrologers do that. But a lot of people who are traditional leaning astrologers will say Jupiter's the ruler of Pisces. I like to work the outer planets, so I do. But let's just talk about this symbolically, right? What does Virgo do? Virgo is the waking world, the daily things. Pisces is dreams, the things that are far out that we can't even touch, but we know are possible. So you see what's going on here with these planets. Again, we're talking about the planets. I'm not here to talk about the signs. I got all the videos about the signs. I'm here to talk about those planets, though, what those planets represent. Those planets lead the energy, and then they funnel down to the signs. That's how that works. So let me talk a little bit. So the micro is Mercury, right? Getting down and dirty with the things we need to know, the details, the information, the questions we have. Jupiter provides the answers. Typically, traditionally, Jupiter provided the answers through spirituality, through religion, right? Through moral beliefs, or higher moral calling. Mercury deals with what is the day-to-day things that would have to get done. We think of Mercury as that daily life, and Jupiter as that higher life. We're not here to talk about which one's better. We need both. Too much Jupiter energy, and the person fails to function on the daily level, on the minute level. The person is all beliefs, but no facts. You do too much with the facts and you do too much with literally, then you lose touch with the grander scheme of life. So you need both, right? So we think of this, what I do like about Mercury and Jupiter, I think in a way, they both have to do with the mind. Mercury deals with how we learn. Mercury can deal with how we think. Mercury deals with our communication style. Mercury is very centered to, again, we think of what does Mercury represent. I'm going to talk about some places Mercury represents in a minute. Jupiter the mind, the higher mind. But what do I believe with this information? If Mercury is the way we get information, how we analyze information, right? Because there's two parts to that. They're the Gemini and the Virgo. Jupiter is, what do we now believe? What do we now aspire to? Even if we think of the traditional ruler of Pisces being Jupiter, what do I now aspire to? What do I now believe because of that information that I got, right? And of course, symbolically in astrology, you go through the wheel, right? You go through the wheel, you go through everything. You have to go through everything to get to that point, right? You have to go through. So if we're hitting Gemini, right, in between Gemini, okay, then we got Cancer, then we got Leo. Well, we have Virgo, but then Virgo to Sagittarius, we have those other signs in between. Sagittarius and Pisces, right? There's all these signs in between that are kind of giving us the true, full experience. Now, let me start to talk just about Mercury. Let's break Mercury down. Mercury rules adaptability. Mercury rules over mutable signs. So does Jupiter. But Mercury rules over the mutable signs that deal with thinking and that deal with how we are moving things. How are we transporting things? Okay. Mercury is gender neutral, right? It is very neutral in general. What I mean by neutral or gender neutral is that it doesn't really assign a masculine or feminine to the signs, right? I mean, to Mercury. Mercury, even when you look at sect, S-E-C-T, when you look at sect in astrology, what you tend to do is, we're talking about a diurnal chart or nocturnal chart, is Mercury is typically neutral. Unless Mercury is enhancing the chart for some reason because it is the chart ruler, or Mercury is in a sign it rules, you don't really use Mercury when you're talking about the malefic and benefic planets of someone's chart. Mercury can go any way it wants to go. Okay, so Mercury is movement, which is why it's associated with the daily. All right, so when we're thinking of Mercury, Mercury is movement. It aligns with what we do daily. Mercury is schooling, third house. It is commerce, banks, trading. All right, Mercury is also vehicles, transportation. Mercury is stores. Mercury is people, situations that we have to deal with all the time. It rules over our mass communication, okay? Some traditional leanings will say that it also can relate to mother's relatives. Some people will say, no, we want to use the moon specifically for that, the moon placement. Again, different schools of thought, but I did want to bring that up. Now, who is Mercury? What is a Mercurian person? What does it mean if you have Mercury as your chart ruler? Meaning if it's your chart ruler, you have a Virgo or Gemini rising. Or maybe you're a person when you have a stellium in the third house. You have a stellium in the sixth house. You're constantly dealing with details of the world. That is a part of your journey. You are dealing with information, communication. It does not matter much if you are an introvert or an extrovert. If you are a Mercurian person, in some way you are responsible for words, the written word, the verbal word, communicating, sending out information. You are in some way need to always be that person that's tapping into that. You got to know everything. You got to have all the details or ask the right questions. I will interchangeably discuss that because, again, we are dealing with Gemini and Virgo both being the rulers. Mercury being the ruler of both Gemini and Virgo. And you're going to get a different taste there, right? Depending if we're talking about Virgo or Gemini. For instance, if we're talking about Gemini, we could be talking about the octave of the writers, the poets, the speakers, the educators, the student. We're talking about Virgo, we could be talking about service workers, you could talk about mail carriers. That's Virgo energy. You're carrying the mail. That's daily, but you're communicating something that it happens 5 days a week. The mail, that is Mercury. The waitress, the waiter, that's Mercury. The secretary, she's dealing with the day-to-day things of the job. The admin assistants, that's Mercury. The event planner is Mercury. Dietitians is Mercury, more Virgo, and right. Taxi drivers, bus drivers, Mercury influences transportation, the bankers, the editors, accountants. That's also Mercury, okay? Mercurian things. What are some objects or things that are Mercurian? Well, receipts are Mercurian, right? Getting that receipt is Mercury. In fact, Virgo octave of Mercury, meaning we want to know what we bought, how much it was. That's Virgo, okay? Again, people will say they dislike Virgo energy until they need the exact receipt. They need to know, How much did I pay? What do you mean my bill went up? Show me the bill. Everybody, right? That's Virgo energy. We're dealing with receipts. We're dealing with specifics. Mail is Mercurian. Documents is Mercurian. Cars, recipes, stores. Stores specifically is sixth house energy. Offices, third house. Even birds, insects, things that move quickly. Mercury moves quickly. Okay. I think more quickly in the sign of Gemini because it's air, but also Virgo. Virgo's ability, the mind of the Virgo, in order to resolve situations. Now, Virgo sometimes can suffer a little bit more from feelings of having to be more accurate and perfect. And that sometimes Virgo can have the answer, I have the idea, but stall on it, thinking there's a such thing as perfection, right? So deliveries, that's Mercury. Deliveries is Mercury, okay? Things that we expect every day, things that we interact with every day, Mercury. Now, the negative side of Mercury can be it's transient. It is fluid, sometimes overly fluid. Things change very rapidly when we're dealing with Mercury energy. Remember, we said it's really neutral, but neutral can mean it can go either way. It lacks rigidity. It can be trickster energy. We're thinking of thieves and trickster energy. Look at the Mercury. Let me look at someone's Mercury sign. Look what's happened with Mercury square Neptune. Is somebody lying? Does someone lie a lot? Does someone deceive people? Right? I'm not saying that's a bad placement for everybody. I'm just giving that example. Mind games is Mercury. Okay. Now let's look at Jupiter. If we talk about Mercury as daily life, Jupiter takes on a bigger message. Jupiter is now, it doesn't have to be things that are daily. It's things that are meaningful about the way in which we should live our lives. Jupiter now taps into our philosophy. It's not just about the information. It is about, well, what do we believe? And Jupiter, ideally, you're accumulating wisdom or experience not found in books or the details. Some things in life we can't analyze to figure it out. We just have to go and experience it. And that is Jupiter. And that is why Mercury is early schooling, compulsory schooling, right? In some countries, they call it primary school. In the US, we call it elementary school, right? Elementary school, middle school, junior high, high school, all of that, K through 12, pre-K through 12, all of that, that's third house. When we talk about college and graduate school and getting your doctorate, that is ninth house, because now you're choosing. You're now outside of the relegated comfortability of the third house of Mercury, which is daily, and now you have to really accumulate and do something. Even if you think of daily school, think about it. When you are in middle school, elementary, high school, you go to school 5 days a week, right? Unless there's a break. That's every day. You know what your schedule is, it's the same. When you go to college, you might not have the same classes every day like you did in high school. So actually, right, there's more choice. So ninth house, we have more choice, but also to deal with messaging and when we are starting to decide who we are in this world. Remember, the ninth house is close to the 10th house. The 10th house, we start to talk about the MC. Now, if you're using whole signs, the MC can be anywhere up there, right? The MC is not just in the 10th house cups. For those of us who is Placidus, we do use that. But the point that I'm making is you're more choosing your world when you're up in the top part of the chart, whereas the bottom part of the chart, we're dealing with what is familiar. We're dealing with what is our foundational life, right? The people and the situations we are born into, the situations that are native to us. When we start hitting above that horizon line, right? We start getting to 7 through 12 houses, it's less about just us. So with Jupiter, it is about, we're not looking at the books. Yes, we can have the books, but we might be publishing the books because the Jupiter is now publishing. This is when you now are sharing a message. You're no longer the student, you're now the teacher once we get to Jupiter. And that does not mean everybody with a Jupiter ruled chart is a teacher in a literal sense, but you could be in some sense, right? The original, again, we talk about the original ruler Pisces, Jupiter, spiritual connections there, higher knowledge. Okay. Jupiter, again, I said associated with the colleges, excess, things we have enough of. We have a lot of something. That's Jupiter, right? It's not so much the daily, it is the things that we're experiencing. You might have to travel each day to work. That's Mercury. But with Jupiter, it could be your travel. Most people, even if you travel for work, you're not traveling every day, right? You have certain places that you're going. You have a destination. You're trying to get what you can out of life through experience and through having to go through these journeys. Jupiter energy is about what higher beliefs do we have. So we're thinking of Jupiter, we are thinking of our expansion, our ability to grow. The area of our life we have the ability to grow the most in is where Jupiter will be. The area of our life that will have the most wisdom, we can accumulate the most wisdom. The area of our life where we'll have the most luck, the area of our life where we should learn the most about is going to be through the sixth house. But we also can have a lot of desires, and I'll talk about that later. Like not desires, but compulsions. Who are the Jupiterian people? These are publishers. These are promoters. The club promoter. Club promoter could also maybe be sun as well. But deans, politicians, preachers, priests. Okay. These are the people who are, when you think of talk show host. That could also be third house, but third house I could say more like radio show host, if you want to, right? Because we're thinking of the way that which the media is cast. But Jupiterian people are people who are in the spotlight, but they're not in the spotlight for Hollywood reasons. They're in the spotlight because of they are in charge of some type of moral delivery. They are in charge of publishing. They're in charge of getting the word out. So Mercury starts it. Mercury gets the information. Mercury reads up on it, right? Mercury does the daily work, but then Jupiter's job is to publish, it is to promote, it is to share to the masses. Both planets are super important. This is not a video about which one's better, right? You might have more of one energy in your chart, but it's not about who and what is better. Now, what's the negative? Let me see what negative. What are some Jupiterian things? Some words that help you. Universities, churches, cruise ships. If you're going to a new destination, you're going to a different country. Just Jupiter. Father's relatives. Again, there are some people that say the 9th house is father. Some people think the 10th house is father. Some people like to use it because they're like, well, the 4th and the 10th house are across from each other. Some people will say the 4th is father, the 10th is mother. All the research I do and what I personally do is the 4th house is your mother. I will accept your father being 9th or 10th, but the 4th house is mother. I say that because and some astrologers agree, and some astrologers will still say your mother is 10. I think your mother is 4th because, again, we can definitely dissect gender norms and who's in the home and who's the caretaker. But the moon, which represents mother, it rules the 4th house. So of course the moon represents mother. And in my birth chart, the moon being in my 4th house is super significant to my mother's influence. So therefore, for me, it would make no sense for me to say my 9th and 10th. My 9th and 10th would definitely make more sense when I'm talking about themes that deal with father, not the 4th house. So I do want to, there are people that have different schools of thought. Mine is the moon was the 4th house. Why wouldn't the 4th house be mother? The 9th house I will accept as father. So you do see Jupiter sometimes representing the father's relatives, right? You'll learn a lot about them through that. Sometimes. Jupiter is also philanthropy, charity. That's why sometimes we talk about charity, we talk about Pisces. But you know what? Remember what I said. Jupiter is the original ruler of Pisces. I do go by Neptune is the modern ruler, but I will sometimes dissect the correlation between the two. You know what I mean? The original ruler. Passports, your wallet, that's Jupiter. Good food, excess wine, that's Jupiter. Things we enjoy, a large cuisine. Weight gain is Jupiter, right? Weight loss is Saturn. We'll talk about Saturn another time. But the negative side of Jupiter is it could be gluttony. I just talked about food and wine, right? It could be gluttony. It can be indoctrination. Because Mercury, I'm just sharing the information with you, right? Mercury, I'm just telling you the facts. But Jupiter, I have to convince you because I'm so convinced of my beliefs. That's why we talk about Jupiter as priests, as religion, right? Not just religion. I don't look at the 9th house strictly as a religious house. In traditional astrology, it might do that a little bit more. Jupiter can just be excess, overindulging in things, food, wine. Jupiter can be risk-taking, gambling, throwing caution to the wind type of energy, right? But that is all I wanted to say. I don't want this to be too long. If I feel there's something else I need to say, I'll probably do a part 2 or something like that. But I do want to start this series where I really help people who are serious about learning astrology. Let's take a step back a little tiny bit, not much, about the signs, right? Because you can't completely divorce the planets and the signs, right? You see in this video, I still talk about Gemini and Virgo and Pisces, right? Sag. But if we understand what the planet means, then we'll understand other people's charts. We won't have to say, well, they're not Mercury in Virgo, what does that mean? You'll understand what Mercury means. You'll understand the signs, and then you can really better understand your chart, someone else's chart, and then do the transits.